I believe I can climb. Woo. Good morning. It is Thursday morning. Just dropped the kids off at school. Probably had an unnecessary conversation with them, story if you will. We were listening to My Own Prison by Creed. Kind of got into the prison talk, and I was telling them how a buddy of mine, and I don't know if you watch this or not, you know who you are, he had already been sentenced, and pretty much they gave him, I think 30 days or something like that they gave you to get your affairs in order or whatever, and then turn yourself in. And it was wintertime. I was actually on the run from another charge myself, and he stopped by this apartment I was hiding out in and was listening to that Creed song, "Court is in session," just so in his head that he had to turn himself in. And I was telling my boys that story, and they kind of laughed. They're like, "Geez, that's crazy, Dad." I'm like, "Yeah." But then I was like, man, guys, when I actually was in prison, I used to go out to the yard and stare at this fence, this big, whatever, 20-foot fence with razor wire, and in between the two fences, they have like jagged boulders in there so that it's designed to literally break every bone in your body if you try to jump down in it. But I would just stare at it, and I'd have these stupid songs in my head, and one of them was R. Kelly, the "I Believe I Can Fly." But I did this parody in my head to it, and I started to tell the boys, and they laughed pretty hard when I said R. Kelly. They're like, "What song, Dad?" And I was like, "I Believe I Can Fly." And they were like, "What?" They're like, "You didn't sing it out loud in prison, did you?" And I was like, "No," but it was in my head. And I've always done that. I've always switched little lyrics around. But it would go in my head over and over and over, and I just thought it was like, man, when I come home, I need to make this Weird Al version of this song. I would just be out there and be like, "I believe I can climb," instead of "I can fly," or whatever. Well, let's see, surely there's got to be an arcade. What the heck's that got to do? There's got to be a karaoke version of that song. I believe I can climb. Woo. I believe I would reach that side. I think about it every 90 days. Escape and hide away. I believe I'd be sore. I see me living in El Salvador. I believe I could climb. I can climb. Anyway, what a weird time to talk about. I don't need the sunglasses. That was just for the music video, obviously. I'm heading to Barboursville, West Virginia this morning. Interesting. I didn't think I needed to come to this one till February, but whatever. That's what you have secretaries for, right? Which my secretary needs to chill out. She literally texted me yesterday and was like, "I'm just at this weird place where I in my head that I think you're gonna fire me." And I was like, "Just go with the flow." And she said, what did she say? I said, "Just go with the flow." She said, "The flow around here is the current that helps sink the Titanic. And I can only doggy paddle." Look, I know it gets a little chaotic around there sometimes, but yeah, I'm not sure that would be the right response to your boss, right? It's funny too, because a couple weeks ago, I can't even remember how the conversation got started, but we brought up Mexican OT, the rapper, the Mexican out of Texas. A lot of people think that OT means something different. It's just literally out of Texas. Brought up Mexican OT, and my other guy was on the phone with her and was like, "Yeah, James likes Mexican OT. He listens to him a lot." And I guess this girl, because she's like, whatever, 23, and she's like, "What? I didn't think." And I thought it was because I have this like hillbilly accent. So I was like, "Yeah, I get it. A lot of people don't think I like rap, you know what I mean?" And she was like, "No, it wasn't because you have a country sounding accent. It's because you're old." That's how you get fired. What am I even talking about? Oh, prison. That was my only escape in there, was my mind. Coming up with those little songs out on the yard about how I believe I can climb, you know, it messes with you, man. And I can remember every bit of it. And this is so many years ago, but it never leaves you. I imagine that's what PTSD is like. And I spent too much time, and if you're out there and you're watching this and you have a warrant or you have something that you need to take care of, just take care of it, man. I know you're thinking right now that running, you're like, yeah, but I'm getting away with it, man, and they don't know where I'm at and I'm slick about it and this and that. Dude, I cause myself more mental anguish hiding and running from things than I ever would have just turning myself in and getting it over with. But that's our personality type, right? It runs in our family, apparently, because my brother, and I'd love to have him on here one day and tell this story himself. My brother literally ran from Ohio to Florida and lived like this undercover lifestyle for like 5 years. He literally told me he was working on like watermelon farms with a bunch of Hispanic people that didn't even speak English, for cash money every day and stuff like that. And I mean, he ended up getting a real job there at the end at like Burger King, where you had to actually put your name out there. But he started a whole new life, ran to Florida, and was down there for like 5-6 years hiding from this case in Ohio. And he finally, something went south down there, so he had to take a bus up here, and I went to the Greyhound station to get him up in Columbus. And I pick him up, and it's his first time touching down in town. And of course, my mom called the police on him and had him arrested. But he went in there, and before I even had a chance to figure out how to bail him out, he seen the judge, and the judge gave him a fine and time served. I mean, that's some stuff you get on the stage at a comedy place and tell. That's the kind of story that's funny, dude. You hid for 5 years and just got like a fine. Dude. Oh, man. But back to the seriousness of it. And that probably messed his head up a little bit. And he struggles, man. He has some mental health issues as well. He's 6 years older than me. Same here, man. All that running I've done, it just... running into this other house, going up in the attic and hiding, and ducking this, ducking that, hiding here, hiding there. And every time you see a cop, every time a cop gets behind you, it's the most intense feeling, you know. And then the girl I was dating at the time, I'd scream at her, I'm like, I swear to God, if you swerve or get pulled over, you know, this, like, I don't know, what a way to live, man. And then you ultimately just have to do the time anyway. And anything that you do from, like, if you're hiding from a warrant right now and you find some success, say something comes along your way, right? A really good job or a really good relationship, or something lands in your lap that is a gift from God. With that hanging over your head, you might as well just pass on it. You might as well not even start whatever it is God's trying to help you with, because it's not worth it. Because you start and you're just gonna lose it all, man. And I've done that so many times and lost so many stars, and I did a lot of it to myself, man. When I was waiting for them to arrest me for that high-speed chase, every day I was like, just do it already, man. I can't explain what it does to you. And I thought of this for some reason the other day. Can't remember what I was watching. I must have been watching a court thing on YouTube, and how this girl didn't think she was going to jail that day, but ended up going to jail that day. Which they're so much more lenient now, and I wonder what my life would be like if it was the times like they are now with Zoom court and all this and that. Because I'll never forget this, man. My very first case ever, and the one that old Dingus got a background report and completely misinterpreted about copper, because everybody's like, oh, you're taking copper out of people's homes, and this, it wasn't that at all. My brother and I, well, he had this whole operation going. Him and a buddy were doing that. They were going to this, I want to say it was a Verizon lot, meaning it's like this, where all their trucks are that work on the Verizon poles and blah, 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 and they keep all this data cable and stuff like that there. And my brother and a buddy of his was going in there and just grabbing these like wooden spools of data cable and throwing it in the back of his car, and they'd go burn it, and they would get like $800 to $1,000, and they'd split it, $400 to $500 a piece. And I called my brother one day. I was in town from my electrician job. I used to work in Columbus, and I was going to the community state college up there. The company I was working for was paying for me to go there, and money was tight. And I remember coming home one weekend, and I was like, dude, you guys are pulling this off, no problem. Like, I want in on it. Like, I want $400 or $500 just like that. And my brother was like, well, my buddy's sick and I'm out of gas. And then he was trying so many different ways to get out of it. My girlfriend at the time was like, don't do it, it ain't worth it. I'm like, my brother does it all the time, like, it's fine. Anyway, I jump in the car with him. We go down to the Verizon lot. He threw the spool in the back of the car, and we went to pull out. There was a undercover cop that was actually watching a crack house next to the Verizon lot, and he assumed because of how fast we pulled in and pulled out that we scored some crack and took off. And so he just randomly pulls us over, and I'm thinking, okay, well, my brother's definitely going to jail, but whatever. And the cop pulls over. He's like, what are you doing back here? And my brother didn't have a license or anything. And the cop's like, what are you guys doing? And he thought we had drugs. And then it was a hatchback car. And I never forget it. He shined the light in the hatchback, and he seen that spool of wire. He's like, oh, I know what you guys are doing. You guys are taking this wire. I thought I was going home. No. They arrested me and charged me with 3 felonies. They charged me with breaking and entering, even though I never even went on the lot. I just kind of sat in the car and waited on my brother, and he didn't even drive in the lot. He just kind of parked outside the lot. They charged me with the breaking and entering. They charged me with the theft because of the spool of wire. And then they charged me with criminal tools because my brother had a hacksaw in the back of in the hatch of the car or whatever. So it's like the first time I ever get arrested, and I get 3 felonies. And nowadays, the cops would have seen something like that, and it'd have been a diversion program. It would have been, hey, we realize that whatever, like, your brother may take some of the heat more than you, even though you're with him, but clearly he's been the one doing this, and you just unlucky timing that you decided to step in and help him on this day. There would have been like a probation. There would have been something, right? A diversion to where, look, dude, it's the first time you ever been in trouble. I think I was only 18 years old or 19. They could have been like, hey, this is the first time you ever done anything. Let's put you on this intense probation, pay restitution to Verizon, and if you walk the line, no felony record. That's what they do nowadays constantly, if they do anything to you, it seems like. But instead, I get this court-appointed attorney. He's like, well, I think we should take probation, 5 years probation with a couple years on the shelf and fines and restitution. And I'm like, all right, I didn't know any better. And I said, but I don't have to do any jail time, right? Unless I violate probation. And he was like, yeah, we don't have no jail time. And I said, because I'm working. I literally have a good job, and I'm in college in Columbus. And I commute every day to Columbus. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I take a day off of work, a Friday, in Columbus, and I come down to town to go to court. I go in there, and the judge is like, I find you guilty on the count of B&E and theft. They dropped the criminal tools. Thanks. He said it's going to be 5 years community control. There's going to be this much fines. There's going to be, I think, 24 months over your head, hanging over your head, and 60 days in jail starting today. That last part was all I cared about. I was like, now wait a minute. I wasn't supposed to do any jail time. I actually have a career. This is going to ruin this is going to ruin everything. And he's like, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And I was just floored by that, man. And as you guys can imagine, I think that was the point that kicked it off for me, that life sucks, man. And these attorneys, like, I couldn't imagine, and I see that attorney around town sometimes, and I wonder, he's an old man now, and I just still have this kind of disgust for him, because how could you look at a kid, you know, a 19-year-old kid, never been in trouble in his entire life, has a really good job, is going to school, had my own place, I had an apartment that I was renting, have all this stuff, and just go, yeah, whatever. I'll just do whatever the judge says. You know, he could have went to bat for me and been like, you know, technically he was a ride-along, or do something, man, something, do something. But at least fight for me to not go to jail that day, because I lost that job. I got kicked out of college. I lost the apartment. At the time, you weren't allowed to be a felon and live there. So as soon as my conviction, you know, was in effect, it was over. And that was the first time homelessness set in. And then, of course, I started abusing pain pills and drinking all the time and violated probation and went to prison anyway. And it was just a downward spiral from there, over, and everything just can't get right, is what you should have called me. But I can't, I don't know. I guess I'm going to title this one Prison Story Time. Hopefully the little song evens it out and it's not as depressing, because I don't want to make any of these depressing, but if they're real life vlogs, then they're real life vlogs, and that happened. And I don't think I've ever explained the true story of how I went to prison, why I went to prison, and that sort of thing. I definitely didn't explain the songs that I came up with out on the prison yard staring at the fence. I know that for sure. Alright, I'm pulling up at the job. I gotta shut this off. You ready for this? Alright, let's line it up.